Now, the Kremlin has revealed details of an unannounced meeting between the Russian and Syrian presidents on Monday. It took place in the Black Sea resort of Sochi.
Now, this meeting had been kept well under wraps, and it was a quick one at that, but the two leaders had plenty of time to talk business, and the two confirmed that the military operations in Syria look to be coming to an end, which would, of course, be a historical turning point in the conflict in Syria.
At this stage, especially after victories against terrorism, we are, of course, interested in advancing the political process.
You just mentioned the conclusion of the military operation. I think that the problem of terrorism is global. We're far from defeating it globally, but when it comes to our operation against terrorists in Syria, the military operation is indeed concluding.
Now, just 2 years ago, Syria was overrun by ISIL, but at this point, they've been outed from all major towns and cities and really are just clinging to a few small villages at this point. And so the focus is really turning towards the future. This was, of course, the second time that Assad has visited Russia to sit down and talk with Putin about the conflict in the course of the country's 6-year civil war. Now, the first visit came in 2015, just after Russia was asked to help in the anti-terror efforts in the country. Assad stated that he is now ready and willing to work with anyone and everyone whose goal in the country is peace and settlement. The recent creation of de-escalation zones in the country was again hailed as the first steps towards beginning a conversation with the opposition groups in the country, which of course is pivotal to ending the conflict. Putin also said that Russia is counting on the UN to actively participate in the final steps of the settlement of Syria. He also said that he'd be on the phone later to Donald Trump and other regional leaders to update them on what was discussed with President Assad. And of course, it's also important to note that Moscow will be hosting a Syrian summit in Sochi tomorrow with officials from both Iran and Turkey, who of course spearheaded those ever more important de-escalation zones in Syria. That's as Moscow will continue to play a key figure in mediating a way forward in Syria.
We asked Middle East expert Ali Rizk about what Assad's visit means in the context of the situation in Syria.
I think that the one important part, fundamental part of the future of Syria would be a role for President Assad. You know, this visit reflects or indicates that President Assad will continue to play a major role. That's contrary to the expectations or to the hopes of some certain other sides. So I think it's a way to tell President Assad that he's a major player in the game, that any consultations will have to take his perspective into consideration. In other words, Russia recognizing the important role President Assad will play, especially at this phase as we see the degradation and the defeat or the imminent defeat of ISIS and the terrorist groups.